right. Hello, everybody. Okay. Oh, good. I see Marcy's here already. She's ready to go. Ready.
I need all the help I can get this week, buddy.
Give me a sermon.
I need all the help I can get this week, so I'm definitely here.
Right. How have you been?
I've been good. I'm in my last 2 weeks at St. Andrews.
That's right.
And getting ready to return to the Presbyterian land full time.
Yeah.
Getting ready for next round of tests in April, and doing good.
Good. That's good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Well, good.
I put I'm going back to Richmond on Thursday, and so I actually put a hold on the Nowen book.
Oh, yeah.
Sent the reading from, so I'm going to grab that and kind of peruse the whole thing to see if there's some other stuff.
Yeah.
And I was late ordering. My Kenneth Bailey book is in a box in Richmond, probably, because that's where I last had
Floating
it.
around somewhere. Yeah.
So I bought another one, and it'll be here tomorrow. So I just need to refresh.
Yeah.
Stuff.
The Nowen book is good.
Okay.
Overall.
Okay.
But it's a more kind of interpersonal kind of, you know what I mean? Like a more internal.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now.
Who you got?
Coming to the stage.
Give it up for. Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's not mess around here. Let's not forget that we have, famous people in our midst.
Look at that.
I don't know about famous.
Well,
that's wonderful.
In certain circles. All right.
Yeah.
Well, look at this picture, though. This is like I should be famous at least. If you haven't recognized yet, that's your fault.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Just humble about it,
Yeah.
Don't want to get on a pedestal, because once you get up there, somebody will try to knock you off.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You been all right, Leonard?
Hey, just finally realizing how burnout COVID has done. It's rough, and so but we're gonna make it, and now we got to deal with inflation.
Yeah. No doubt.
Oh my gosh. Well, if I could just quickly ask you seasoned preachers a quick question as we dive in. I sent the Christian Century article, which I haven't done a whole lot of reading, I have to say. But I sent that picture, and then Darren sent the reading, the Nowen reading based on the Rembrandt painting. And I wondered, I know, Darren, I think you do for sure, but St. Andrews still uses the audiovisual equipment in the sanctuary. And I was thinking about projecting that image at some point during the sermon. I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. Do you use using art to try to?
I don't use it as much as I should, but whenever I do, it's really moving. A few weeks ago, my wife preached about the handwriting on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and there appeared a hand, and the presentation, and a hand came up there, and it was just moving. And I did an Afrocentric John the Baptist, and everybody just went off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's they recommend you do it, but I just I guess it's only so much you can do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I speaking of that, I remember I don't remember what I was preaching on, but I remember that I put an image up of the scene that came from, on that Texas Week site that we were looking at. There's a section that kind of there's an art section that does that, and there's a site out of Vanderbilt, I think, that has this different art for scriptures, but they often have these images painted by some artists from Africa, and it has it just has the story contextualized in that way, and so I just remember I was at Fairfield and I put that image up, and it was like, it was I think, it was supposed to be like God and the two, like two people, I don't know, but like, like it's all very dark skinned people, and I just remember I just remember because I just left it up there as I preached. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't reference it. I just had it up there as kind of a counterpoint to what I was, to what I was saying, just up there next to it. And people like kind of just seeing people's faces as they were kind of like, registering that like this was a black this was a black God, or this was,
Well, but wait a minute. But Fairfield had that hallway over by the children, right? That painting, right? And that guy was dark.
They had a darker version of Jesus, but I still remember one little girl kind of like she kind of was like, she looked over and she kind of looked at her grandmother like, are we sure about this? No. Anyway, but I like to try. I mean, a little bit. I know that I've used. I know I did a Trinity Sunday and used that Rublev icon that has the three people sitting around the table.
Yeah,
it's kind of a famous one. But I did have someone tell me after that. They said, "I always enjoy your preaching, but that picture today, I didn't understand."
Oh my, right?
So,
well, and then one last thing before we dive in, just I'm preaching more often than I had been, but when is enough around the reading? And I have a list. I've already put a list together of a dozen like readings, text this week. This morning I was on Left Behind and loving it, where he's talking about Bart, and I'm like, I could overwhelm myself. Yeah. And then I thought to myself, if I do all of this, where will the Holy Spirit come in? Yeah. So when do you all cut it off?
Well, I use logos, and then they have what they call the passage guide, but they have a method that's used by this guy, Ralph Douglas West, out of Houston, who teaches at Truett. And he has like 31 questions that you ask yourself about the text. Now, naturally, I can't answer some because I don't read the original languages.
Right.
But, he has you look at the important words, and they come out in a chart. And the thing I really get is the cross reference when it talks about the scripture, because like when I did the temptations of Jesus, and every time Jesus quoted Deuteronomy, and Satan quoted Psalm, and and people just get amazed when you can, they feel like they learn a whole lot more, and then he has you look at the cultural context.
That sounds, and Dr. Voles, our preaching professor, gave us a sermon outline, and I think I'm the only one. I talked to my classmates, and they're like, "You're still using that thing?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because it helps me organize." But when you get to the part about reading and researching and looking at, it's like I could go on for days.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy it so much, but at some point I have to stop reading and start.
Yeah. And I normally stick with one commentary. I have World Biblical Commentary that gave me a long time ago, and that's integrated in the logos. And really, that's what got me through one of them courses with Valentine using World Biblical Commentary.
Yeah.
He was like, wow, what happened? You just got it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I wasn't showing it to you.
Right. No, I hear you. No. Well, I see Mark's here, so better. Yeah.
Having a party, people.
Yeah. Hey. I'll just answer it real quickly. I mean, the thing.
I don't think I ever asked you when we were together. I don't remember.
Well, I mean, and the thing for me is that, I mean, it shifts quite a bit when you're doing it every week.
Right.
Because I used to be able to kind of slowly plot and plan what I was going to say and what I could read, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, and that doesn't happen anymore. And so
that's right. Yeah.
So it becomes different. I mean, I think on it generally though, usually I often stick with 1 or 2 different commentaries, but it often changes. Like it's kind of just like if or some text that I'm using alongside of it, So I don't try to get too much into it unless I don't know what I want to say.
Right.
If I read the couple things that I've read and I'm like, well, I don't like any of that.
Yeah.
then I have to keep searching for something else.
Digging.
And it's kind of hard now too, because with this theme that I'm doing, with this, using this theme and tying it all together, I find myself not doing as much reading because I kind of get a picture of what I want to talk about, almost right away as soon as I hear the text and I think about it. So, actually, I'm kind of in a weird space because I've been doing a lot less reading than I normally do. So I kind of feel like, oh boy, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
Something wrong? But
well, I got the best advice, and Mark got that too from Miles Jones, and he always said, "Let the text do the talking."
Yep, that was classic Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay. All right.
Good. Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, counting down to some time off, so I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
You going down to the Outer Banks again, aren't you?
Yeah, going down Saturday for a week. Yeah, my favorite places.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it a long weekend at least, or just
it's actually for the whole week. We leave Saturday and come back on Saturday.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I have to wait till after Easter, but I already have a little time planned off too. So I'm digging in for the for the next few weeks, see if we can make it. But I'm with what Leonard said earlier. You now that we're kind of coming a little bit out of COVID, you realize how much kind of got sapped out of you in the meantime. That was it's a rough go.
Yeah. I think we don't realize how much the isolation takes away from us, because you draw energy from being with people and stuff, and then you're not doing that, and that draws a lot out of you.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why personally, even though I could only have 10 people in the building, I had 10 people in the building.
Yeah.
So I could draw from somebody.
People don't realize how important. I mean, community. It feeds each other. That's the spirituality of it. But I mean, and I think that and to me, even before COVID, I thought one of the greatest challenges facing folks was isolation. I thought that folks felt that, I always said the contradiction of social media is that you can communicate with a lot of people, but you might not be close to nobody.
Right. Yeah. Well, just so I kind of at least I know for Marcy's sake, I'll bring this back to the text.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an aspect. I mean, there's an aspect, right, of what the Son comes to. I mean, part of it has to do with this being in a foreign land and not having, clearly not having anyone that he's related to, especially after he runs out of money. Right? But he has, he seems to have some people around him when he has the money, but when it's gone, he finds himself alone. And obviously that means that the people that were around him were not authentic,
right?
Friends of his in the first place.
Right.
And there is that real sense of isolation, and of course, for him, I mean, it's very self-imposed. He basically blew up any family relation that he might have had.
Right. That was his choice, right?
Yeah.
Well, probably not that was his choice, but
right.
where he ended up was not. But the initial, that was his choice.
But what I've always tried to get in this inheritance thing, inheritance is what you get when somebody died, and how in this instant did he get the inheritance, and his father was still living, because it went totally against everything cultural,
right?
I can imagine that when the hearers first heard this and it's being retold orally, especially in the early church, that part had to horrify them. I mean, they had to what is, what in the world is wrong with this fool? I mean, and to me, as we look at this thing hermeneutically, there's several things I was looking at, and that the part that we says he comes to fathers, give me, and I think I sent you all those articles, and how this text relates to climate change. I think that whole "give me" speaks to what I call it again, the arrogance of Western culture. Western culture is a "give me" culture.
Right.
It's mine. Give me what's mine. It's mine. It's all about me. And how that relates to this whole thing. So I think when I was in seminary, I thought the greatest existential threat when I was in seminary back in the 80s was the arms race. I mean, I still think it's a major existential threat, but I think climate change now is the biggest existential threat that we just are not paying no attention to here in Western culture.
Right. Yeah. And I like what what you're saying with the "give me" too is that give me the share of the property that will belong to me,
but it doesn't belong to you.
I mean, it does, right? And everybody knows that there's no guarantee. That that whatever property this person owns and whatever wealth they have now, there's no guarantee that in 20 years that will even be around. Right now it's saying, look, I want you to pretend like right now is 20 years from now, and do whatever it takes, to give me, whatever it's gonna, whatever, and it may, it might be nothing by then.
He's actually saying, pretend that you were dead.
Pretend that you're dead.
Right.
And that goes back to those articles that I sent you, which talks about the arrogance of Western culture. That when Western culture looks at, and I think a couple of years ago, I think Leonard and also Jennings hints at this, the arrogance of Western culture that we view creation as something that belongs to us.
Right.
It does not belong to us. Right. It's not ours. And I think part of it's good. That's part of it, and the part of it is also, I think that Jennings hints at this also, that because we don't spend time with creation, you can't appreciate what you don't spend time with.
Right.
Now we're so locked into, whatever that we're doing that we can't appreciate the beauty of what's been given to us. And now we're facing this major existential threat that we still not paying a lot of attention to here in the East. And what I like what he was saying, that we looked at the attitude of the sons, and that other cultures which are not contributing as much to climate change. In fact, other cultures which are not industrialized at all and depend on the environment for their very substance are like, what is wrong with these people?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's that part, part of it. It's that whole give me what I can get right now.
Yeah.
No matter what the future holds. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I get shocked on it, and when I look at this climate change issue, that what's surprising is how very little churches are talking about the issue of climate change. You would think that when we talk about the creations, wherever the Genesis text come up or whatever, that would be more talking about this a lot. We're not, and looking at all the data that's going on, whether we look at the oceans warming and those effects, or see what happens in Texas the other day with the wildfires. Now they're having tremendous tornadoes today.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at these effects, and people or the drought in the western part of the country. Nobody's talking about it.
Right.
It's like,
but we're talking about it, but I'm finding out that people just don't get it. It's not a connection, Mark.
It's not. It's right.
And as much as I talk about it and involved in it with that Virginia Interfaith thing, my members still, it's about survival for people. So, and they don't, like you say, it's focused on me surviving the day. So I can't worry about what's 2050 is.
And I guess I get that, because I mean, certainly with the way things are, folks are focused on survival. But the reason why it's important is that when we talk about mitigation efforts, one of the things that concerns me with the mitigation of climate change is who gets mitigated and who doesn't. When we look at like the Tidewater area, they talk about building whatever they're doing, seawalls. Well, that water is going to come somewhere. So if certain communities are affected, are protected, and certain are not, which will probably be communities that don't have money, resources, communities of color. I mean, we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I hear what you're saying, Leonard. But I mean, you would think that like last September when that storm Ida came up and certain parts of my home city, Philadelphia, which were completely underwater. I mean, that was climate change right there, or parts of New York. So, folks may say, well, it's not affecting me now, but but inner areas besides the coastal areas are going to be affected by this thing.
Right. So, well, I think we've always, I think humanity maybe in general, but I think Americans or North America or United Statesians, whatever we want to call ourselves, I think especially have a problem. I mean, and again, like in the text, the son doesn't realize what's happening until complete desperation, starvation.
Right.
I mean, and then I mean, for him, luckily, it's not too late because he has some place to go and hide, and go and find.
And that's what I liked about one of the authors said. One of the authors, I think, of the article I sent you all says that when we're in the pig pen, will it be too late? Will it be too late in terms of stuff be totally irreversible, whether it be places too warm to grow crops, or parts of the coast are completely uninhabitable. Will it be too late when we wake up from our pig pen?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is that it's something that you have to believe the projections.
Yeah.
And you have to put yourself in the place of what's going to be like, in the future. And I think people have a really hard time with that. And additionally, I mean, unfortunately, what we learned recently is that what it takes for the majority of people in the United States to get concerned about something is 24/7 nonstop news telling you that this is what you're supposed to be concerned about.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can get a lot of people on board for something if you just hammer at them, over and over again. Yeah. But of course, I mean, the people making money off all this are the ones that own those TV stations. So I mean, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But no, I hear you.
There was two other hermeneutical issues in terms of this text too. One I couldn't find any articles on, but certainly something we can talk about is that those who hear this text, and I know Marcy can identify with this, who are affected by family trauma, whether that be something as simple as divorce, and they just can't relate to a father figure, a male figure being loving, or something even worse in terms of that father figure having assaulted them physically or sexually, or they as children seeing that father figure beat or kill their mother, or even going further, looking at those folks as father figures as policemen murdering us. So I think there's that issue of folks hearing this text and they just can't relate to a fact that a male can be loving towards them because they have never experienced that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or turn around, a woman hearing that, and they can't experience a male figure loving them like a father because they've never experienced that type of love, whether it be divorce or go even worse, that type of family violence or trauma.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing about this text, if you're talking about the cultural relevant, like the cultural background to it, I mean, the way that this father acts is the way that no father would act
in that time.
Right.
Right.
I mean, at that time. I mean,
Right.
yeah. Well, I mean, basically, it's a impossible story.
It's scandalous. It's scandalous.
It's a this.
That's an interesting word, Marcy. What do you mean by scandalous? What do you mean by that?
I mean, the things that the father, a lot of what the father goes through, and this was some of the stuff that I read, that we talk about the younger son, but we don't talk about the suffering that the father goes through because of kind of the social standing of what it means for some of the actions that he took, how he was, how hard it was for him. Yeah. And so, I'm thinking about the scandal being the son's behavior, but from a social standing, the father's behavior also can be seen as scandalous. Really.
And it's amazing too, when you said that, Marcy, who was bringing all this information back? Because he says go to a far off country, and yet still the older brother says, he spent all his money on prostitutes. Well, how does he know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I take no credit for this. I take no credit for that. That's a strictly Kenneth Bailey. Jared knows that book has a lot of kind of the cultural time. What that was like.
I wondered about that. How did this? I can see the father, the son going away, and just because of that loss, standing out there on the side of the road, saying, "Well, is my child going to ever come home?"
Come home,
and it's that hope thing, that even keeps people alive. That knowing that somebody is coming, people will live, and then you leave them alone in the room and they die.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. Well, but I think that's I mean, I think so. After that, give me part that you highlighted, Mark. The next thing. So he divided his property between them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about in this day and age, at that time, the wealth would have been within the land. Not necessarily they would have had just a purse of money somewhere.
Right.
So this would have probably involved selling off part of his property
assets. Yeah.
To actually and to, I mean, imagine if you're the other fathers in the community.
Right.
And this guy go ahead and does this for his son.
Right.
They're not going to like you.
Right.
The other father's going to be looking at you like, what?
Right.
Why are you even why are you even putting this out there in the world that this is a possibility?
So
you should have just beat that kid.
Who's really reckless? The son? The father is also reckless in the eyes of
because he violates all the cultural code and the economic code, really,
and the religious code.
The
land is supposed to be sold permanently.
Yeah. I mean, it's so I mean, that is a big. I mean, it is scandalous on so many levels, and then to welcome the son back as if nothing happened. I mean, and just say, "Well, you're my son again." Let's, I mean,
which is the beautiful romantic part of the story, but actions do have consequences.
Right.
Well, that's so that is where I was interested in at least in the Connections reading, where one of the authors, I think both authors, talk about, acknowledging that the older son has a point, that actions have consequences.
Right.
And, are you really just going to let him come back after everything he's done? And I'm an older sister. Think about Stephen, and I can't say he was ever that reckless with, but I can imagine maybe thinking, what's this about? And I was thinking about it in the context of yesterday. I think I said that in my children's sermon about the fig tree, I talked more about the gardener and the extension of patience and grace. But two people came up to me afterwards, and I know Denise preached on it as well, but by the time she preaches, I'm in the back with the kids.
Right.
But two people came back to me after the service and said, well, what do you think happened after a year? And not in a nice way, right? It was almost like they were like, well, don't you think that if they hadn't borne fruit by then, that they just got chopped? It's almost like this idea of what's deserved based on our actions is what people really cling to. It's a harder reach for them to consider God's compassion, mercy, and grace. And it's just, and so I think so many people really are like the older son. You've got to be kidding. When does this run out? And I I'm sensitive to that, but yeah, I can imagine that a lot of people in the pews on Sunday are like, wait a minute, let's not throw the older son out. He has got a point. So anyway.
But remember the question they asked Jesus at the beginning of the text.
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's this judgmental thing,
Right.
That once, it's almost like why they wanted to throw Hebrews out, because it says once you fell off, you couldn't come back.
Yeah.
And that's the way we are as Christians, when you mess up.
Yeah.
You get what you deserve.
Right.
Yeah.
You get what you deserve.
I mean, and that's I like that though. I like people. That's a good one. What do you think happened after a year? I like that.
It's like that's where you want to go with it. It's like, right. What happened? It's like, okay, yeah. Maybe more time. Is that possible? More time. Even more time. Another 3 years. Another 4. Oh no. Somebody's got to get chopped down. Come on.
Somebody got to pay.
Somebody's got to get chopped.
Somebody's got to pay.
Come on.
But like this text, and then the one about the lost coin, the lost sheep, all of them tied in together.
All tied together. Yeah. The context is critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
The context is critical. Yeah.
No, that's fun. No, it's true though. Yeah.
There's the third hermeneutical thing that I was looking at on this text was central articles again from a LGBTQ community, but found the fact that and I think those articles I sent you all talked about what the child who was the male who was gay. It's always true that they're lost,
right?
No, whereas they didn't leave. That their families abandoned them because of their sexual choice or their sexual preference or whatever. And I'm thinking about that in terms of the church. I mean, that's how in a sense that and I don't know if I've got a chance to read Candace Benball's book Red Lip Theology.
You finished it?
Huh?
You finished it?
Yeah, I finished that. that. Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
About a special friend, which I think is excellent. She talks about that whole piece that it's not us that have left. The gay people have left. We left them. We've abandoned them. So I mean, here in that text, from if you're part of that community, it's got to be extremely difficult because they're the ones that feel abandoned.
Yeah, and I like the way that the author was talking about that. He talked about that verse 17, but he came to himself, and he said, and then he made the decision to go back home. But about people project. I mean, this is kind of similar to the fig tree thing. People projecting on other people how far away they are from the, how they're in a distant land. That's another. Well, that's a classic thing when you're preaching. You can see in your mind how the thing that you're calling people away from, everybody is looking at someone else.
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And that's how we view the gay community, that they're in a distant
Right.
land, that their
Right.
orientation or whatever
Right.
that that's somewhere else. That's Babylon.
Right.
They need to come home to the heterosexual way of viewing things.
Right. And I like that he was saying that for him when he came to himself was whenever whenever he actually could come out and say who he was, and who, that was his point of realization. Yeah. It's
and I think the text, it brings up the fact that, well, first of all, I think Leonard and I talked about it all the time, that in the church, we are just not comfortable talking about sexuality and sensuality. I remember one time, this is a long time ago, I wrote a little piece on sensuality, and even though books like the Psalm of Psalms is a very, very sensual book, we are just not that comfortable because of different things with sensuality and sexuality, and we're not comfortable talking about it. So no, we sure are not comfortable talking about something which is we consider to be deviant from what's mainstream.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I was gonna say, this was not in the context of worship, but we have the city here has a choral group that sings on occasion, and they're actually their offices in our church, and they use our sanctuary a lot. But they had a concert last week, and they did this song. I can't remember the name of it now, but it basically was this repeated refrain that they sang over and over again about something about, I don't know, amazing, some kind of wonderful love. I don't know, something about love.
Okay.
But in the midst of the refrain going back and forth, they had a man and a woman reading texts from the Song of Solomon. And it was like, it's like one of those texts. They start reading and like they're singing this song and they start reading the thing, and like people start looking around like, what? What did they just say?
Yeah.
Well, most Christians have not read that.
Well, and I mean, I remember having like read it before, but like whenever a man and a woman are reading it in front of a congregation of people, and like there's singing in the background, and I mean, and they, there's some, there's some images in there that do not leave much to the imagination,
Right.
Right.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah.
So I decided it was just interesting. I mean, to your point, I mean, it was interesting for me how uncomfortable I was, just kind of like how it kind of made me kind of be like, dang, and looking around at other people, and people kind of giggling, because they got a little bit nervous.
And I think it goes back to, again, talking about the whole creation. Until you engage creation, we engage creation through our senses. And one of my favorite things to do when I go to the beach next week, I'm gonna kick off my shoes. I'm gonna walk on the beach. I want to feel the sand. I want to feel the water. Right. I want to be in touch with the earth.
Yeah.
I want, my favorite topics when I'm doing my photography: sunrises and sunsets. Because you can feel light. You can feel the color of light. And that's how I engage in photography. But I don't think we don't engage creation because we don't engage. We're scared of being sensual. We're uncomfortable with being sensual.
Yeah. What else you got, Marcy? Give us your other questions. I know you got some.
I know
you got.
Yeah. I'm working through that outline that Vo's giving me, just writing down stuff. Well, I mean, I think we read two texts. I will read the sermonic text, but I was just looking at a draft of the bulletin, and they put the Joshua text up there, and I was like, I'm going to go with the 2 Corinthians text because I think that's where. Yeah. So I guess that, the whole ministry of reconciliation. And then there's, I think in the connections reading, that whole piece in talking about reconciliation, this idea that the son says when he confronts the father, that son of yours or your son, as if to kind of distance himself from his brother. Whereas when father responds to him, your brother, so this idea that we're connected.
Right.
So, so that's as far as I've got, guys. I was
just building on what Mark was saying about the sensuality thing. I do think the one thing about this this Rembrandt painting, oh, they won't let me do it that way. Give me a break.
Technology. Technology. Okay, there we go. We see it.
Yeah, and this is not. I mean, it's kind of.
And that's the older son standing to the right, I think.
Okay.
Darn it. Okay, there we go.
That's good.
Okay, I see it.
But
the older son is the one on the right hand side.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Just
right.
standing with his hand.
This one here. But I mean, I think that the thing I like about this painting is just, you really get with the the hands on the shoulders, the kneeling and the image of, you really do get the earthy, you really do get the physical aspect of it. I mean, I think that's
you've made now I'm definitely going to use it. I wasn't sure, but I definitely am going to put it up.
And if you read that now in book, I mean, they talks about the shaved head, I mean, like, just all these things that kind of really
which book was that from, Darren?
It's called The Return of
one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, Return of the Prodigal Son. It's called.
Okay, I haven't read that one.
So, I mean, it's a pretty. I read it a long time ago, and I kind of forgot about it for a while. But it's right in Nouwen's life when he's transitioning from being a professor at Harvard, and then he's going to go live in the
in that community.
The community, the Daybreak community, and he's kind of has visited one of those communities like that, and he sees this poster in someone's office, and then he ends up kind of like being kind of mesmerized by this painting, and the painting becomes kind of like a kind of a touchstone for his discernment of how he's going to kind of go through life, how he's going to make his decision about what he's going to do next. And so it's an interesting so it's and of course, I mean, it's interesting when people spend a long time looking at something and focusing on something and then writing about it. It's just kind of it can be interesting. It could cannot be interesting too, but this one, I think he does a good job.
What I like about that painting is that, I mean, the father and son engage each other, and I think that one of the things we have to realize that you can't have healing without engagement.
Right.
Right.
You cannot have healing without engagement. You have to engage the other person, and on different dimensions.
Yeah. No,
well, there's so many hermeneutical moves here.
No, it's a lot. And we should.
That was the question I asked Mark at the beginning. He's like, "When do you?" There's so many things. At some point, you have to make a decision.
Have to focus. You have to have. Focus.
I think I have maybe 15 minutes, and then this is actually my last. This is my last Sunday there, so I'm gonna have to at some point address. And I wasn't gonna do it. This is my last Sunday there.
This coming Sunday.
So I feel like I'm gonna have to say something about that too and address them in some way. But that's not. I'm preaching the gospel first, and then I'm gonna. Maybe before the benediction, I'll say something.
What's your text? You do the.
I'm doing the Prodigal Son. I'm doing the Prodigal.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm doing that.
You know what you need to. You know how you need to end.
How?
There's a lot of grace in this text, and I have a lot of grace for you. But I'm coming back in a year. And there's some of you. I know this is going to need to be cut down.
I mean, it's just. Yeah.
That's
the idea of being so comfortable in our own perception of our righteousness, and that's what's so important. That's the thing for me. It's like, that's where you hang your hat, is in your perceived righteousness. And you just can't even bother to notice just the anyway. I'm gonna work in reckless love too, Darren. That's I gotta work that in somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
well, I mean, I think that there's, I mean, you know, the one thing about the interesting thing about that kind of what, you know, the way people's attitudes are about kind of that, you know, justice or whatever, you know, or getting what you deserve.
Right.
I mean, there's certainly a way to tell this story, you know, that where you could talk about what the father would have been expected to do within the community.
Right.
Yeah.
When the son asks the question, and then when the son returns. In order to you know, to maintain the sanctity of the community, the way that their traditions were set down, you know, and how the father basically ignores every single one of those.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, a lot of people talk about the way the father runs, you know, I mean, even that being, you know, you know, beyond kind of what was proper, you know, proper
expectations,
decorum and expectation, but there's so many more things that are done, you know. And even the, you know, even the idea of waiting and longing and looking for the son to return, as Leonard was saying, would have been, you know, while human, would have been, you know, would have been frowned upon, just because it, you know, it sets certain expectations about what you can get away with.
Right.
You know, and still be loved.
There you go, right?
You know, So I mean, obviously, I think the whole way the father acts is completely reckless, and what you said, and scandalous, like you said, you know.
Scandalous.
And is that where we see the reversal, which is what we talk a lot about in Luke? Is that, I guess that's my last question. Is that where the kind of the reversal of expectation? I was thinking about that earlier. Just that whole, not sure. So many things in the head. Too many things in the head.
Because you ever bring up the question, you know, when the father says, well, everything I have is yours.
Right.
And the son says, if that's the case, why didn't you consult me? Before giving away all of this stuff. You know?
Right. Yeah.
It's so much, you know.
There's like too much.
Hermeneutically full. I mean,
it's a lot. It really is a lot.
I was going to say the other interesting thing, you know, about the reconciliation piece with the painting, which you don't get a lot maybe in the thing, is that you have the community here.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
You have a woman here, you know, and you have this guy that looks kind of like, you know, this guy that looks like he kind of, you know, the way I think of it is like he kind of had to be there to like say that it's legit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like this is so out of touch with what people would expect that this guy has to be here you know, to say, no, it really happened. He gave it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No one would believe it. No one would believe it otherwise.
And then they have, you know, then they have to have the feast, you know, to have everybody else come over and say, look, we've reconciled, you know, like this is, you know, you kind of have to have the community over to prove it. Otherwise people would probably stone the kid in the street. You know what I mean? Like literally, like if they, you know.
You're right. No, you're right. And I was thinking about from the standpoint also that in these first century communities, they hear this text when the communities were pulling their resources, they be together. And the arrogance of the selfishness of the son had to probably really astound them. But as the son comes back and the father welcomes him, that love even goes beyond that. The love welcomes back that person who would violate this norm of the community that we share everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot in there. There's all kinds of ways you can go. Just read about 20 more books, you'll be fine.
Seriously, I have about 20.
No, don't read
How much time you have? Is it 15 minutes?
You know,
it's your last one.
I
Just,
know, right?
just
she typically
hold them there.
Yeah, I know. She typically preaches about, I'm going to say 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay.
Between 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
The previous pastor preached 30.
Ooh,
Reverend
30
Blunt,
minutes?
Dr. Blunt, routinely at Carver preached 35.
30 minutes. I mean, every service?
Every service.
Wow.
And he still, when he preaches at chapel, he tends to be the longest of anybody that preaches, but he's the president, so he can do what he wants. But that's his. Yeah. He's made jokes about it. He's like, I was born a Baptist, and so he's used to preaching a lot longer than the Presbyterian way. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never get that much time, but I tell you what, if I had it, I'd take it.
Yeah, right.
If I thought I could get away with it.
35 minutes. Wow.
I would take it.
Routinely. And I mean, everyone's hanging on every word.
Really?
That's
wow.
Absolutely.
And of course, he's got it to the point now where he's got, like he kind of has to he's only got to come up with about 5 a year or so.
Right.
And he gets to spread them around. He gets to spread them around a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. He's not doing a weekly thing. Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
No, but you're right. He can get away with it. That's for sure.
He can.
Yeah, but
wow.
Anyway, yeah, good.
Well, my eternal gratitude.
Well, so
are we going to get it? Are we get to get a tape of it, or it'll be on YouTube, or
is that on? Is it streamed?
YouTube?
We'll have to.
I think so.
All right. Well, we'll have to check it out.
I'll be down the beach. I'll be looking for it.
Oh.
That's right. I'm trying to. Let's see. I think next week is the John text, but maybe we'll have to figure out we'll have to figure out a Lucan text to stick with.
The lectionary text is John?
Yeah, it goes into the anointing, Mary anointing Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Right before you get to Holy Week, but yeah. So I'll think about that, and we'll see what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously, y'all be in prayers. I mean, because first Texas was experiencing some devastating wildfires, and they're getting hammered tonight by bad weather, tornadoes. They're getting hammered. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of devastation.
Is it in the Houston area?
The same system is going to move east, so Louisiana is tomorrow. So yeah,
it's all around, but it was real bad up around Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Weather Channel.
Yeah, it's
some of those towns just that they flood just like nothing. It doesn't take it. I mean, it just goes.
Yeah, well, that's Houston. Houston's worst place.
Yeah.
So much concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it till I went down there once, and when I saw, sometimes 12 lanes of highway right together. I mean,
yeah. That was Houston.
Yeah. Nowhere for it to go.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll try to figure out what we might talk about next week, and
okay. Have fun, Mark.
We'll jump into it.
I'll join you Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. From the beach.
Maybe we'll just get together and talk about sunsets. We'll have a let Mark show us a slideshow, and we'll just
sunrise is the thing. Yeah. See that sun come up out of the water like it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll get up one morning about probably around sunrise and do some shooting. So
yeah. All right. Well, we can do. Isn't there's a Lucan text about? I think that Luke does the text about the when you see the clouds are red or whatever, like the
Oh yeah.
guide of the guiding the how to read the clouds and things like that for the storms coming. So maybe we'll do some sunrises and apocalyptic Jesus texts from Luke somewhere.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
All right,
y'all.
Thanks again, you
All
guys.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.